having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I have, as Bree mentioned, my name is Leslie Berglund. I have been in the wine industry for 28, 29 years now. We're based down in Napa. We do a lot of work up here in the Pacific Northwest. This is our first time, though, actually here in Southern Oregon, so thank you so much for your interest in getting us down here. We're thrilled. I do love this area. Every year for the past 5 years, I come for a week with girlfriends to the Shakespeare Festival, and we see kind of 12 plays in 6 days, and we're completely nutty about it. And I look forward to getting to know you and your wineries, because I'm just going to have to extend my visits this year. Okay, what we'd like to do is what today is about: 7 secrets of professional, helpful, natural sales is what we're going to be achieving together. This is a fun, hands-on workshop. It's not just me talking all the time. It will be very interactive. Don't get too attached to where you're sitting, because you're going to move around. A little bit about my background and the background of the Wise Academy is I actually started in the wine industry in 1991. I was a wine retailer, but direct marketing only, so I didn't have bricks and mortar. I'm a 4th generation Napa Valley native, and I did a research project when I was at business school, was to help a group of investors of what to do with $4 million worth of aged Cabernet Sauvignon. And I got so excited about the project, this is in the early 90s, I ended up saying, sell it to me, I'm moving home, let's do this. And so that's how I got in the wine industry. It led through a lot of different things, but just grew up learning direct-to-consumer sales and marketing for wine. From the very start, even though I was a retailer, is I started helping wineries with their own direct-to-consumer programs, because first of all, those are back in the days where there was no mailing lists. You know, some people had sign-in guest books. So me and my team ended up taking 75 wineries' mailing lists and creating databases for them and saying, you guys should mail out and do this. And then a lot of them let us, that were neighbors and peers, let us mail to those lists as well in the early days. Then we started wine clubs for ourselves. Like, this is really cool. You guys should do wine clubs. And so we launched the first 39 wine clubs in Napa and Sonoma. And then eventually I got into internet. I'm like, this is really cool and insanely expensive. Can't I resell this e-commerce platform that we did? So we launched the first 150 wineries in 1999 and 2000 onto the internet. So I was I wouldn't call it leading edge, I'd call it more bleeding edge in a lot of cases. But I've been around for a while. And so sold that business, the Ambrosia Wine Catalog, and all of those other kind of services I talked about in the year 2004. And then worked for the new owners for 365 days, not that I was counting. And they were lovely, but I'm an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. And within the year after I left my former company and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the next phase of my life, I got 10 phone calls from 10 different wineries, as I always did. Like, who do you know who would be a good tasting room manager or wine club manager? And I don't know what it's like up here, but down in California at that time, there was like 6 good wine club managers, and everybody's fighting over the same 6. They're just kind of popping back and forth. And it was really weird. So I got these phone calls saying, who do you know that could help fill these growing positions in our winery? But the thing that was unique about these calls is 8 out of the 10 calls is the old person was still in the job. You know, it was not like they'd turned it over and had a vacancy. It's like, we've outgrown these needs. I'm like, wow, there's something here. There's a need for the industry to keep filling out professional expertise in consumer direct. And we're going to leave good people behind in the process if we don't create some training and some education. So that's how the Wise Academy was born, and went into production, and then in 2008 launched our first classes in 2009, so almost 10 years now. And we have since, we have certification classes in all aspects of consumer direct: tasting room, wine club, online marketing, CRM, at the professional and the management and the executive level. We do a lot of executive leadership development as well. We work in wine regions now all across the country. We've even been doing a little work in New Zealand, which is a lot of fun. And that's enough of a cliff notes about us. You'll learn more about me inevitably throughout the day. What we're going to do, a little bit more housekeeping for the day. In front of you, you have a Wise workbook. And here's how it's going to work. In my conversations with Bree about what we wanted to put into today's session, I came up with more exercises than we are going to have time to do. Okay, that's by design. I wanted to make sure that we had some flexibility throughout the day to spend a little bit more time here, a little less there. So don't be frustrated if don't get to everything. That's by design. As we go through the slides, in the upper right-hand corner, it will tell you what section we are in the workbook. And so you can turn to that. But I tend to pop around. If I ever lose you, just raise your hand and ask. Back in sections 14 and 15, these are important. There's an area called new sound bites and one called ahas and key take-home lessons. Fair warning that before we break for lunch and at the end of the day, I'm going to have you guys share at least one key thing that you were not thinking of at 8:57 this morning. It's one new thing that you go back to the winery and commit to do. The reason we do that is, we all go to conferences and workshops and you take notes, and inevitably it gets stuck in a drawer somewhere. But we've found that if you actually go down that's a cool idea, plan the first step of what you're going to do about it and speak it out loud, the chance of you actually going back to the winery and doing something different, changing behavior, goes up dramatically. And so that's the method to our madness there. And we also have, every one of you should also have a feedback form. It's very important. We're going to collect those at the end of the day. They are anonymous. Please be detailed. Please be honest. You cannot hurt my feelings. This is constructive criticism is always welcome. And certainly it's important for Bree and I to continue to develop programs that are going to work for you guys. So we look forward to that. A little bit more about my bio in the very back of the workbook is there. Okay, I think that's it. We're going to start off our conversation today talking about brand. What is a brand and how does that concept come into our life in the wine industry? So when I say, we're now in section 1A in the workbook. So when I say, what is a brand? What do you think of when I say that word? Anyone? Identity. Story. What else? Culture. What else?
Belonging.
What?
Belonging.
Belonging. Okay. Okay, this is a good start. So brand, when we talk about brand, it can become kind of esoteric, right? And sometimes you think you have to have an MBA to understand it, or marketers or academics tend to make it really complicated. And so what happens is, here's how I like to think about it, is we use a product, we buy a brand, but we remember and enjoy and are really experiencing the experience. Okay, it's the emotional connection that makes brands powerful, that makes brands stick. And as I mentioned, some people make this whole thing really insanely complicated, but when we're teaching this in our WISE classes, we do it from a consumer perspective. And the good news is we're all consumers in this room. We buy something. And so what I'd like you to do is kind of take your winery hat off and put your consumer hat on. There are brands that are iconic. Okay, and I know there's never going to be these uber dominant iconic brands in the wine industry, nor should there be. But let's see if there's some lessons buried in here. These brands up here are so iconic that some of them have become the products and services, right? If I'm going to sneeze, please hand me a... Right. And wait a minute, I'll Google it. Or don't worry, I'll FedEx it. Thank God, Bree and I had a little FedEx experience in the last couple of days chasing the workbooks down. And so, given that there never will be these uber dominant brands, what are the lessons we can learn from them? And so, the big boy lessons kind of boil down to marketing 101 stuff. Strong brands deliver a promise we can rely on. FedEx it when you absolutely need it there overnight. Strong brands have a brand personality we can identify with. Think of the battles in your own social circles between a an Apple user and a PC user. Think of the differences between a Mercedes buyer and a VW Bug buyer. This is not right or wrong or good or bad. It's Apple versus PC, Bug versus Mercedes. It's just different personal, emotional choices. Okay, strong brands deliver an emotional brand experience that we will remember. Like, and this is a hint for the gentleman in the gentleman in the room. The Tiffany's blue box with its white satin rhythm says so much more than just a normal gift of bling, right? There's just something more there. There's just emotional connection. So what differentiates your winery brand? Okay, with hundreds of wineries, in the state of the Oregon, and a lot of people around this table here today, a lot of people in our neighborhood, a lot of wineries here. What differentiates a brand? That's actually the wrong question. Okay, the right question is, how can you leverage the power of your brand through emotional connections? So your wine is the product you sell. Your brand is the gut feeling the customers and prospects have about your company. It's your promise, it's your identity, but it's their experience. And every one of your interactions with guests, okay, your tours, your tastings, your events, your website, your emails, your phone calls, how you greet people when they walk on your property, help make your brand come to life. And in the end, it's the brand experience, unfortunately, it's not what you say it is. It's what the customer feels it is. It's what their gut is telling them it is as they're driving out of your driveway. And so no matter, I know we have a lot of owners and winemakers in the room, no matter what you think you want your brand to be, the final arbiter of all of this is the customer. Let's give this a try. What I'd like you to do is to turn to section 1B in your workbook. And I'd like you to think about, and this doesn't have to be for wineries that are in this area, it can be any wine company you know of. I'd like you to jot down as a consumer. So this, I don't want you to use your own winery. I don't want you to use a winery where you've ever personally worked, but just ones you know of as a consumer, as a neighbor, as something. When you think of a winery brand, what does your gut tell you about what the brand persona or identity or attitude is? And this may or may not be what the owner wants, but just what, as a consumer, what do you feel it is? What's that vibe? What's that sound bite? Spend a couple minutes, and if it's too hard to do on wineries, it's fine to do a non-winery example, just something else that you buy and know as a consumer. Think of a company, and we want to get into what's that differentiator. Here's how we're going to do this. We're going to have someone start. We're going to get 6 to 10 examples up on the board. And say the name of, let's start with winery, say the name of the winery. And then if someone else also had that winery, I'm going to ask you to add whatever your impression was. Who wants to go first? I need a volunteer. Okay. Gina.
Because we have a tasting room in our town. So I put Naked Winery.
Okay, great.
And Sex Sells. Young, inexpensive party.
Okay, great. Sex Sells. Young, inexpensive, party. Okay, great. Did anybody else have Naked Winery? Okay, super, thank you. Let's do another one. Okay, in the back.
Alpha Omega.
Alpha Omega. And this is down in Napa, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Down to earth. My experience is somewhat anti-natural because most of the tasting rooms there are extravagant, over the top, pretty. It's industrial. It's kind of like walking into Noble Coffee in Ashland.
Okay.
Concrete floors, but yet providing exceptional quality wine and customer service.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. Did anyone else have Alpha Omega? Can't imagine. Okay.
Sam Michelle Winery.
Yep. Yep. Okay, what do you have?
Quality, affordability, welcoming but not overly fancy tasting room. Representative of the region, and we also have concerts there.
Concerts, things, yeah. Great, okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Silver Oak.
Silver Oak, what do you have?
Beautiful wines, always consistent. Very professional and accommodating staff.
Okay, great. Did anyone else have Silver Oak?
Very good.
Okay, Bree.
Clearing Farm,
How do you spell that, please?
CLARINE Farm.
Okay. I know how to spell farm. Okay, what do you have?
Environmental integrity, commitment to place, honesty, transparency, diversity.
Okay, great. One more, we'll do one more.
Union Wine Company.
Union Wine Company.
So they're fun, approachable, mobile, Oregon hip.
Okay, sorry, fun, approachable, mobile, and what did you say?
Hip, Oregon.
Oregon hip? Got it.
Can we do one local too?
Sure, absolutely.
Someone's gotta get kudos in
Okay, please.
Weisingers.
Okay. Now I know how do I spell this? The Weisinger's in the room. How do you spell it?
W-E-I-S-I-N-G-E-R.
W-E-I.
S-I-N-G-E-R.
Thank you. Didn't want to embarrass myself. Okay.
An icon in the area.
Okay.
Tempranillo Rock.
Okay.
Owners often there.
Are you trying to get a job?
Okay, great. Okay. So let's listen to what's up here.
Can we add homegrown to Weisinger's?
Homegrown, sure.
This feels homegrown.
Okay. So these are all positive things. One of the challenges that we have when we really do a deeper dive with brand in our classes is that we so often here, we do exercises where you kind of write down your key things that differentiates you. And so often what we hear back is family-owned, homegrown, boutique, handcrafted, all these things, perhaps sustainable, organic, whatever. All of these things are very important and true and authentic, but they're not differentiated, right? And so that's this is actually a difficult exercise. It's not from your gut was just telling you what it is, but if we say, how do I make my winery stand out from others? It's hard to kind of differentiate. So I'm going to read through this, and I'd like you to think as I do, what up here, and this is not dissing any of these great brands up here, right? But what up here is truly unique that would really stand out? So, Weisinger, iconic Tempranillo Rock, owners are there, homegrown, Naked Winery, sex sells, young, inexpensive, party. Alpha Omega, down to earth, industrial vibe, great quality and customer service. Chateau Ste. Michelle, quality, affordable, welcoming, not fancy, concerts. Silver Oak, beautiful wines, consistent, professional staff. Clarine Farm, did I say that right? Environmental integrity, commitment to place, honesty, transparency. Union Wine Company, fun, approachable, mobile, Oregon hip. What in there kind of jumps out as really unique? Like you can't say it about perhaps any other winery or a lot of other wineries.
Oregon hip.
Oregon hip. Are there more wineries that are Oregon hip?
Yeah.
Would you agree that that's kind of unique? Okay. That's fine.
think the sex sells is pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Sex sells, what else? I'd say actually the concerts are pretty unique. I mean, in terms of like for people, if you know up in Woodinville, that actually they're really well known for that.
I feel like
What else?
transparency can be, it's just, it varies, so
It can-
sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but when it really shines through, it's like, it hits you.
It depends on, you're absolutely right, depends on how it shows up in the world.
Yeah.
But with more and more wineries committed to environmental sustainability, it's kind of like that actually used to be kind of unique. Now it's kind of table stakes, right? You know, it's just, you know, we need to be doing this. That's the way our, you know, employees want, places our employees want to work, places consumers want to buy from.
Percentages that go into varietal, or to what's supposed to be strict varietal that might have 5%, 10%, something else in it, that kind of thing. Sometimes.
Yeah, and just there's whole transfer. I agree it's important, but not, I would not say necessarily unique. So here's our challenge. Our challenge is how to make our winery stand out, because I don't know what it's like here in this neck of the woods, but in many wine regions across the country, if someone's kind of coming in and doing wine, they're seeing a bunch of wineries. And what happens, I know we have a couple winemakers in the room, is we think that what differentiates it is the wine. And wine's very important, needs to be good and great. It's not actually what the customers are going to remember, because they're tasting a lot of great wines. And because kind of white noise. It doesn't mean it doesn't need to be great and they won't buy, but it's not enough to differentiate the experience. And so what happens is if someone's coming and seeing a whole bunch of wineries, we want to say, what can we do with our guest experience that's really going to make that stand out, either from persona, kind of what the brand is about, or choreography, the guest experience, and design. Now, key strong brands, this is not specific to the wine industry, are going to have these things. They're going to deliver a differentiated message clearly, which is, as we saw, great examples, but actually kind of hard to do. They're consistent in terms of they confirm our credibility. It connects to the target emotionally. So the people who are going to be in a Naked Winery are really different than perhaps you might be going to other wineries, and that's fine. It motivates buyers to buy and cements their loyalty. I mentioned that we started Wise about 10 years ago. I didn't share with you that we have mystery shopping is actually an outgrowth of our business. We have our tasting room professional course or a wine club professional course. I'm in class for a couple days. We send everybody out to go shop their neighbors and peers, because what happens is people in class like you guys have been in the industry for a while, and we'll go through this stuff today, and you know, or they'll be in class and say, oh, this is human nature. It's like, this is a nice reminder. Of course, I do this all the time, or we do this all the time, but it's a nice reminder. And then we send them out mystery shopping, and you realize, maybe we don't do that all the time. By the way, did anybody get a chance to go do a couple shops before class? Raise of hands. Okay, a couple. Doesn't matter if you didn't get a chance to. We're going to debrief with that after lunch. It'll still be a very lively discussion. But thank you for those of you who did. We're going to get a taste of this. And so what happens is they come back and they go, wow, you know, it could really be a little bit different. So the point is, we've done 4,000 mystery shops in the last 2 years. And I'm a data geek. I keep data on all of it. And there's two types of brand fumbles that we see when wineries are not kind of coming across with that really memorable, differentiated brand experience. And the first one is when they're not consistent. Okay, for example, if you went into Naked Winery and everybody was, you know, dressed up in a three-piece suit and classical music on or something like that, that would not fit the brand, right? It would be inconsistent. Or if you walked up to Opus One and everybody was wearing leather and tatted, that would not be consistent. Not necessarily good or bad, it's just not consistent with the brand, right? So those types of brand fumbles, just an inconsistency, whether it is what we know or kind of the promise of the brand, either because we know it, you know, by reputation, what it promises on the website versus the actual experience. Or it could be, you know, how people are dressed, or what kind of music there is, or also the visual merchandising, the things in your winery that you might sell that are beyond wine. Are they consistent with a brand story? Are they telling a brand story? Or do you have finger puppets just because someone thought they were cute, right? It just is every single piece, every single thing that the guest sees and hears and experiences consistent with that message. So that's the first. There's two types of brand fumbles. That's the first one. And it's like you don't notice it when it's not there, but when it's there, you're like, oh, that's inconsistent. The second type of fumble we see is when it doesn't do what we call, it doesn't pass the golf course test. Here's what I mean by this. You've had someone come visit your wine region, and they go home, and the next weekend they're golfing with their buddy, and they said, oh, I went to Southern Oregon, and I visited a bunch of wineries, and first of all, do they talk about your winery? So what are the ones they mention? And secondly is, what's the sound bite? If they did mention your winery, what's that sound bite they would still be talking about a week later? What's that thing, kind of like you did there? What's the thing that sticks to them that one sorts it out from the other 8 wineries that they visited? And the second, so what we see and what we're going to hear when we do the debrief this afternoon from the mystery shops is, and this is where you got to really put your consumer hat on. If you're driving out of the driveway after visiting that winery, based on just the guest experience, not your previous knowledge of your neighbors and peers, would you know what made that winery different and unique? And that's really the challenge that we struggle with so much. There's a couple homework assignments here for you. First of all, on 1C, what I want you guys to do is to go back and with your team back at the winery is nail, whether it's unique or not, what are the 3 key brand points, the stuff that's important about your winery, whether it's unique or not, but it's really core, that when the customer's driving out of their driveway, they really know about you. And the reason 3 is the right amount. Okay, 2 is too few, and a laundry list of 10 is too many. You want to really get your team dialed into those 3 key points, and don't worry, they won't end up sounding all like robots. You do want it to come out of their mouth, because our goal and what we're going to play with later on today is how do we have different sound bites and different stories that reinforce those 3 key points. So the themes are coming up, but it's not the exact same words. So focus in on 3 key points, whether it's unique or not. But then the next step is to identify what's your green fish. What's that thing? What's your version of sex sells? What's your version of you have concerts and everybody else doesn't? What's your version of that thing that's going to pass the golf course test? It's going to cut through all the clutter and all of that. And that can be a challenge. Because again, a lot of the stuff that we have, at the end of the day, you stack them all up, it can sound kind of similar. Who here listens to TED Talks? And you may have, okay, cool. And I've spoken about this at least one symposium. There is a fabulous one by a guy by the name of Simon Sinek. And it is about 17 minutes long. It's called, by Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. And it's about how great leaders inspire. He wrote a great book. He's written a bunch of cool books. One of his first famous one was called Start With Why. And it's on this subject. It's on this subject of why is it so hard to identify what our green fish is, what the thing is that makes us unique. And part of the reason it's hard is because we're so close to it. So what happens is Simon's premise, and I do encourage you guys to go listen to the video, but quickly here, as he said in marketing communications for kind of all companies, there's what he calls the golden circle of communication. There's 3 rings, an outer ring, a middle ring, and a center ring. And he says the outer ring is about what we do as a company. Okay, we make Pinot Noir, we make 5,000 cases, that's what we do. All of our employees know what we do. All of our customers know what we do. So that's the what. The middle ring is the how. We farm biodynamically. We are 3rd generation. You're going to see grandpa and grandson right there. We have vineyard designates. Those are kind of the hows. And then in the center is why we do this. What's what makes us jump out of bed in the morning? Why did we start this winery in the first place? It's kind of a kooky idea. What's that driving force? Where's the emotional, personal, historical stories, or the thing that really keeps us coming back again and again to kind of bring this vision to life? If I had a video recording of the last 4,000 mystery shops that we've done in wineries all across the country, 95% of the words coming out, first of all, in the exchange of the guest experience, would be coming from the server or the host, and 95% of it would be in the outer ring. The what's about the wines, the 1,000 what's about the wines. And our challenge with it, and the thing is, that's not what consumers remember. It doesn't, it becomes white noise. And so the challenge is, and it's somewhat understandable because, you know, and some of you guys have a lot of different wines, a lot of different SKUs, and your team members have memorized all the information about it. And I've memorized every what about this wine, and gosh darn it, you're going to hear it. You know, that's just kind of the default. It's where all the time and the energy and the zone gets sucked up into the 1,000 what's about the wines. Sometimes we get a little bit about the hows, you know, and too rarely we get the why. Let me give you an example, a good why example, not in the wine industry. Simon Sinek says, you know, exactly that the majority of our marketing communications is sucked up with all the what's, and we never get to the core that's really going to differentiate it. He uses Apple as an example. If Apple was a normal company and they were doing normal marketing communication, they'd say, hi, we're Apple. We sell computers. This one's white. It's beautifully designed. It costs $1,000. Want to buy one. That would be typical marketing communication. But they're not a typical company. Apple instead says, we're Apple. We're a rebel with a cause. We're here to change your relationship with technology forever. The products that we design they're beautifully designed. They're easy to use. Even if you think you can't use it, you can. You know, this one, we happen to sell computers. This one's white. It costs $1,000. Want to buy one? How different does that feel? And the challenge is in our industry, we're not getting to that emotional core. We're not sharing that thing that's going to connect us. Again, I'm not talking about the big iconic brands, the FedEx, the Google. That's not the game here. But we absolutely can connect on the emotional side. So how it shows up, as I mentioned, all of those tasting notes, all of the facts and the data about the wines, those are what's. We're killing ourselves with the what's. Hows, vineyard designates, could be some clonal and soil types, biodynamic family run, those would be hows. And then, of course, the whys. The personal, emotional story, the history, how we got here. I find, certainly, if you can nail that why, you're going to pass the golf course test, no problem. It's just going to happen. I have also found in the wine industry that we can also differentiate ourselves on, I would call it extreme hows. And it's something that we may take for granted because we're so used to it. I have a couple examples from some wineries down south. One is Hansel Vineyards. I was on their board for many years. And they grow Pinot Noir. They're in Sonoma, right off the square. They grow Pinot Noir on a really steep hillsides. And part of when you go to visit there, before, you can't just go do a tasting. You do a tour and tasting. And they put you in an SUV and they take you out. And they literally are driving you up one of those hillsides, which is really kind of scary. So when you're back down then doing the tasting and they're talking about what happens with stressed out vines, you completely get it. Because viscerally, like you were there. And I would call that example an extreme how. I also have another example is at Quintessa Winery. They're down in Napa, and they make one wine, Quintessa. It's a Bordeaux-style blend, one wine. And they have a high-end, good experience. I worked with them for years. I was walking through the winery one day with one of my clients, and I saw in tables like this, but a huge array, thousands of corks spread out on a sea of tables. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, oh, we have our 2 sniffers coming in tonight. Like, what? Yeah, before any cork goes in a bottle, they've got these 2 guys with, you know, great snozzes who come in and sniff everything. And apparently it takes down their percentage, you know, damage, TCA, whatever, which is cool. It's just what they do. But you're trying to justify, you know, a very expensive bottle of wine, and I've never heard this come out of their mouth. You know, it's like, why isn't that part of the tour? I mean, you don't have to display the corks, but you could talk about it. You could have a picture of it, because that's an extreme how someone's going to remember that. That's kind of nuts. And it reinforces the brand and the quality and the attention. You want to make sure that your green fish is a good one, you know, is one you want to be remembered for. So my question to you is, are there things in your own winery that you take for granted? You know, that you're just so close to, you don't even think of it as an extreme how, but it's cool and people would remember it. Are there, and I guarantee you with every winery in the room, there's compelling whys. There's some core reason why you started it in the first place, why you keep on doing it, why you recently bought it, whatever. There's got to be a reason for being there that binds the whole team together. So my hope would be, and this is actually, I promise you, 7 secrets of natural helpful sales. Yes, Jessica.
So before you move on from that picture,
Absolutely.
I was looking at that, and I was trying to make sure I understood what you were saying.
Sure.
I've read before that today there's more new, like, data being produced than ever before, but less knowledge than has ever been assembled before. Are you talking about moving from that data to, like, actual knowledge with the what and the how?
You're drawing the analogy of saying, is there a lot of data in the outer ring? The what, you're absolutely right. It's right full with data. It's the data that explains what's in the wines, you know, and all of that stuff. I guess at the end of the day, it's all data, or it's all content. But if you say knowledge is something that you're really going to remember and do something with, yeah, the more you go into the center, it's going to differentiate itself. It almost kind of, it's like a giraffe in a sea of zebras. Like the head just sticks up and it sticks out, you know, saying, okay, that I can remember. It's doing something with the information. It's all still information, but it's compelling. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions on this? So as I mentioned, today we're going to go through 7 secrets of professional, natural, helpful sales. This is the first one. Sell your wine first. Excuse me, I did it backwards. Sell your brand first, just seeing if you were listening, and your wine second. Start with the brand. We're going to spend the rest of the day talking about how we should tailor the guest experience to who's in front of us. But on this one, I'm rigorous. On this one, it's the same. I want that brand messaging to come through. Go back, work with your team, nail your 3 key points. What are the things you want someone to walk out of your winery and completely get? Work on that green fish, that why, that thing that clearly differentiates it. Celebrate what's unique. And make sure when you're doing it that everything speaks. Everything, you know, be consistent. But the example I didn't use, what the everything speaks is Disney's really good at that, of making sure that, you know, when you go into that theme park, nothing is going to break the special magic kingdom. You know, everybody's in character. You're never going to see any violation of it. So that's really kind of picking it up from there. Okay? Cool. Any questions on this stuff? All right, we're going to move on to the next one. So, shifting gears a little bit. What I want to talk about in our next couple sections here is the concept that not everyone who visits us is the same. It's creating, everybody who walks in the door has something different going on. And if we had magic powers and we could just read their mind and read their hearts and know best how to sell to them, wouldn't that be really cool? You know, just like a magic fairy wand. We just knew the words to say to get them to do what we want them to do. We're going to explore a little bit that we actually have more power than we think we have. This is a basic marketing principle, kind of saying that there's a funnel from prospects to people who've bought from us once, to people who've bought from us many times, to people who are our brand ambassadors, our loyal fans, our evangelists, okay? And so what I've done is we've translated that to the winery. And what we have here, and this we are now on 2A in your workbook, both 2A and 2B. There's some areas to fill information out. On 2A, we're going to start with prospects. Okay, so these are people who come to your winery and they've never had your wine before, they've never visited before, they're just newbies. Newbies to you, prospects. And then we have people who bought from you once, people who bought from you multiple times, and then people who are, helping sell your wine, basically, to their family and friends. Let's talk about the different psychological needs that each one of these levels have up the continuum. What I'd like you to do is let's take this outside of the winery and just put your consumer hat back on, nothing to do with wine. When you buy a product for the first time, and this is discretionary purchases. This is not food or gas or safety related. This is stuff you want, but you don't necessarily need. When you buy a product for the first time, what psychological hurdle do you need to get over to be able to get your wallet out and make a purchase? Any ideas? Think of what has to show up in your world for you to say yes? What? Quality. Okay, what else?
Maybe like a pursuit of a lifestyle.
If that's what this is yours, So it's fitting your pursuit, what happiness or lifestyle is for you. Okay, good. What else?
Experience with a salesperson.
Experience with a salesperson. Can't be negative. Yep.
Be luxurious enough.
Luxurious enough for you. Okay. So we all have kind of somewhat different filters, and none of them, it's your decision, so none of those are wrong. Research shows that there's an actual baseline hurdle that we all have to help our guests and customers get over for them to purchase from us the first time. It's not even that sexy. It's called risk reduction. So if you think about the LL Bean catalog, still today, they'll take up a 2 full-page spread saying 100% satisfaction guaranteed, period. Because they want people to trust them as a merchant, trust them as a distribution channel. I buy these rubber boots, they're going to last forever. And so it's funny because when I started the Ambrosia wine catalog back in 1991 with my brother and my best friend from business school, and now she's my sister-in-law, and they still owe me a husband. And so we started Ambrosia, and back in the early 90s, in the alcohol and liquor industry, we couldn't say 100% satisfaction guaranteed. It was actually illegal, but the law changed in 1993. And we knew as direct marketers that saying that out front loud and often was a really core tenet of direct marketing. And so we're like, yay, we can now put that in our catalog and say, don't worry, we'll stand behind it. Because think about it, if someone called you and had a problem with one of your wines, what would you do? You replace it. You take care of it. You do whatever it took. You're going to take care of it. But we weren't able to say that up front, whereas other industries could. And so we're like, yay, okay, we can now put this in the catalog that mails out to millions of customers. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. We stand behind this. And they were like, what if everybody takes advantage? What if they say their Opus One was corked and we go out of business because we can't fulfill all these, That's not what happens. Consumers are basically honest and good, and if someone's jerking you around, you've got a database, you'll figure that out. But we're like, okay, we went ahead and did this. So in the wine industry, and guess what? It helps. But how often do we have this on our websites? Do we have this on our club brochures? Yeah, we don't. We don't even think of it. We do it, but we're missing that telling. These are people who don't know us yet. They don't trust us yet. They don't know us from job. So we have that opportunity. The good news in the wine industry, there's plenty of risk reduction mechanisms. Love it or hate it, the reason that ratings work so well, or award systems work so well, you like people not to rely on them, but it's feeding this beast. It's telling people someone I'm supposed to respect has blessed this and said it's a safe option. I'm not going to be embarrassed when I do it. So if you've got it, flaunt it, don't hide it, please. Get it out there and share that. It's not just the ratings from Spectator and Robert Parker. It's also any awards you do. Any of those things that kind of give that outside credibility, please do it. The good news is our tasting rooms in and of themselves are great risk reduction mechanisms because they taste it, they try it, they like it, they buy it. Okay, so we're feeding it that way, which is super. On our websites, one of the reasons, if you're not doing this, I encourage you to, And one of the reasons that sample packs, 3 packs of 3 different wines or 6 packs or a mixed case works so well, it's kind of like the online version of that. Try these, and then if you like it, you can reorder cases, that type of thing. Because there's this basic kind of human need thing going on. So at this first level, at prospects, we're saying, okay, what's the basic need? And this is on 2B, there's an area to fill it out. The basic need that we need to meet is that risk reduction. And when we do it, the likelihood of them buying for, hopefully it's a great experience and it's luxurious enough and there's quality, all the things that you mentioned before, whatever's going to light your fire is there too, but you have to have that baseline. Let's go up and see how it changes, how the psychological need shifts as we go up the continuum. So the next stage is our first-time buyer. So first of all, in the world of direct marketing, if someone has bought from you once, they're not actually a customer yet. They have to buy from you 2 or more times for you to really consider them a customer. We think of them as customers. Morgan may say, Leslie, I signed up, X new customers this weekend. It's like, no, you have X new first-time buyers. Because if we can just get them to the point where they buy from us a second time, then all of a sudden that loyalty and longevity and everything kicks in. And so back to my brother and my sister-in-law, after 4 years of 4 years of working with us, he decided he had to go get an MBA too. So he went to Harvard, and then after that, he went and ran the Frontgate catalog. Actually, he's the second number 2 guy there. So high-end lifestyle products, 600 gold-plated sidewalk washers and $6,000 barbecue grills and all that good stuff. He's a week on the job because I didn't know the concept of what is the psychological need of this first-time buyer to buy from you for a second time. It's not necessarily obvious. Anybody have a guess? Consistency. Well, they've only bought from you once, only on one data point. Satisfaction, yeah, it had to have been a good experience. Prestige, again, maybe something from it. It's hard, and I didn't get it until Greg called me after a week on the job at Frontgate. He's like, Leslie, Ambrosia, the name of our wine catalog, needs a first-time buyers program. Like, what's that?
Exclusivity.
Huh? That could be part of it. It's not. It was actually just thank them. Just thank them. And I mean, we're literally, I was on the job at Ambrosia. I think we're year 6 into Ambrosia. And we're mailing out millions of catalogs a year, millions. And we're surviving on, because we had a $900 average order value, we're surviving on a less than 1% conversion rate. I mean, it's really hard to get new customers. Unlike wineries, you guys have people coming to your front door, which is awesome. And you get people to buy from you the first time, and then only 10% of them buy the second time. It didn't mean you wasn't satisfied. It's just the way the funnel works, right? And he saw at Frontgate, he's looking at the numbers, he's looking at that data, he's looking at the numbers going, oh my God, just that outreach, that thank you so much for being a first-time buyer, hope you had a great experience. If there's anything we could do to make it better, please let us know. And it's not a sales communication, it's a gratitude communication. There may be a little gifty. Yes, John?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's okay.
When my wife and I go out to eat and you're leaving the restaurant, that is always nice when they say, hey, thanks for coming in. And it's kind of irritating when you have 2 people gabbing about who they're going to go out with on Saturday night as you walk out of the restaurant, and I think, well, I guess they really didn't care.
They really didn't care. Yeah. No, and so certainly I think we said that it has to be a good experience. Let's assume that the first experience was a good one, but there's just this drop off. And I know from Ambrosia, from my experience with my direct marketing customers, it was a good experience. We have great customer service. We have great products, great prices. But yet the percentage drop off of who does it a second time. Because, well, I'm going to actually turn this into a kind of relationship analogy. So it's like a first date. If the prospect level is okay, eyes connect across the bar, there's a little attraction, The first-time buyer is like the first date. They're not customers yet. This is not a relationship yet. It's a first date. You're both on your best behavior. And certainly can't have blown. You need to have good manners on your first date. You couldn't have bad manners. Presumably. And so for this first date to get into the second date, it's that thing that Frontgate did. And literally all of a sudden he's looking at the data saying, just by reaching back out and thanking them, instead of having a 10% conversion rate, actually this is the Ambrosia example, instead of having a 10% conversion rate from those first-time buyers to repeat buyers, it jumps to a 45% conversion rate. It's phenomenal. Like, oh my God, I couldn't have learned this message 5 years ago. Like, geez. And we implemented it, and it's just phenomenal. It's a core tenet. And most wineries don't do this. Yes?
So how do you translate that into the tasting room?
Exactly.
experience? I mean, it's easy when you have
We're about to.
someone's address.
We're about to. What was your
Perhaps
question?
just a little further ahead of it, when it comes to people that have already bought your brand to the extent of, let's say, membership for 6 months, and you take a call, they aren't satisfied, or you're just solving something,
Yeah.
or you're giving them information.
So we're going to get to.
I get off the phone and it's thank you for your membership. Is that something you want to keep doing? Is that
We're going to get to actually both of these points as we go up the continuum. Okay? But the right one right now is what Deborah is asking for, is saying, so what, that sounds great, but how the heck do I do that in a busy tasting room, right? So first of all, when we have people sign up for our club, we do this, right? Welcome package. Welcome package. Thank you so much for signing up. All the love and the good behavior, hoping we get a second date, starts kicking in, right? But what about, okay, let's say you sign up 7% of the people that come to your tasting room to join your wine club, but the other 93% have had a rocking good time. They just didn't join the club. It doesn't mean they didn't have a good time and couldn't be a customer of yours. So what do we need? If our goal is more second dates, okay, we've had a good time, but we want hundreds of second dates. What do we need for a second date?
Reason to come back.
Okay, let's assume we've delivered. It's a good time, and we've manners. We're saying thank you very much.
Communication.
Communication. What do we need to do the communication? Yep, but what do we need to physically give them an invitation to return? Get their data. If we don't get their contact data, there are no second dates. There's a core tenet with the WISE Academy of something we call the triple score. Yes, we want to have great guest satisfaction, but also we want to achieve our 3 core business objectives: sell wine, sell club memberships, and capture contact data. And so we're going to spend some more time on that this afternoon, how we get over our own personal baggage about capturing contact data and help our teams to get over that. But if we don't have many ways to capture contact data, there will be no second dates. And there's actually another word for that. We'd have hundreds and hundreds of first dates and never a second dates because we never had their phone number or their email address. There's another word for that. One night stands. That's not what we're looking for, right? So I want you to think about what you could do back at your winery to get more second dates. So one, yes, capture contact data, but what would you do with it? And wineries who have implemented this concept of first-time buyers programs, where they're basically just reaching back out and saying thank you, and maybe there's a little gratitude gift you can save on shipping your next time around, but it's not salesy. It's mostly just gratitude. And measuring that and seeing how many of those times those guys reactivate, all of a sudden you have a lot more people going up your buyer's continuum than you would have before. This is probably one of the most important things I'm going to talk about today. Oh, by the way, I realize, I did say it before. We have those key sound bites and those ahas in the back of the binder. So if you're seeing any action items from the stuff we're talking about before, please go back and fill that in sections 14 and 15. So first-time buyers, prospects, their need is risk reduction. First-time buyers, their need is recognition, and thank you and appreciation. Repeat buyers, club members, okay, people who've bought from us multiple times. What's their need to stay engaged? How does their psychological needs shift? What do we need to do? Create a relationship. Yes, it's certainly anchored in this, and this is the part that gets, in part it's natural, in part it's tricky. In essence we have hundreds or thousands now of these customers who have bought from us multiple times. We have relationships with them. But having a relationship means you know them. And so I'm going to pick on the boys in the room again. If you're in a relationship and your partner, you want to do something nice for her, okay? Right. And you like chocolate, so you keep bringing home chocolates because you think you're being a good guy. But your partner's on a diet. Who would much prefer? You're a dumbass, John says. Yes, thank you. How is this going to go with her? She would much prefer roses or bling, but how is this relationship going to go if you keep bringing home chocolates?
Down the toilet.
Yeah, man. So the point is, we're in a relationship. This is a two-way relationship. We're in a relationship with hundreds and thousands, but we have to show that we're noticing. We have to show we're listening. If you have someone in your customer list who only buys white wines, from every behavior, you have any information, all the data about they only buy white wines, and you keep sending them red wine emails, you're making that chocolate versus roses mistake again and again and again. As John just said, you're a dumbass. Okay? How many times are we doing that? Inadvertently, right? We don't mean to be that. This does not mean that you can't cross-sell. This does not mean that you can't eventually convert your white wine drinkers to red wine. But this is why we do list segmentation. This is why never, ever, ever send an email out, the same email to everybody in your database. First of all, I want you to be talking to them based on the stage they're at, because you're going to have a very different conversation. They have different needs. And the further you get up your buyer's continuum, I want you to if they want chocolate, send chocolate. If they want roses, talk about roses. If they want bling, start with the bling. You're supposed to know them. This is a relationship, as Ashley says. And so often we don't do that. Now, it's kind of easy, yes.
Just capturing of the email addresses and stuff like that, that's pretty active. Are you allowed, is a passive approach just be like visit our website or visit our Facebook page or connect with us on Instagram? Does that count?
Well, no, we want you to encourage people to engage, but think of it, let's go back to that analogy, that first date analogy. If you're having a great first date and you're just saying, this was lovely, I hope you reach back, I hope to hear from you time, and leaving it all in their court, there's nothing you can do to say thank you and have good manners. And that's what most wineries do. They revert to that passive. We're going to spend some time this afternoon talking about how we can do the active role, but with grace and in a brand appropriate way, because we don't want people to feel icky about it. Yeah.
One piece of clarification for my purposes, when you say a buyer, are we talking about people that return to buy a flight of wine even though they don't take bottles home?
No, I'm talking about any additional engagement, whether they return and visit the winery, or they buy from you online, or they join your club, or they respond to a phone call.
Even if they just show back up again and they don't take anything home with them, but they pay for the flight services.
Yeah, that's still an ongoing customer.
Okay.
Sure, it's any activity. We certainly, at the end of the day, want them to buy wine and want them to join the club. But really, we want them to reactivate. And too many wineries are stuck in kind of what you were just looking at, saying they're stuck in the, I'm going to be passive about this and hope they show back up. And I guarantee you, you're missing 100% of the shots you're not taking. And that's that lesson that I got from Frontgate to Ambrosia, my company, going, wow, powerful. Kind of a little late, but I used it. Okay? So up in this repeat buyer, really the psychological need here is around tailoring your offers. Showing that you're in a relationship, you're listening, you understand them. For those of you who sell wine on the phone, either inbound or outbound, it's kind of like cheating because you've got the data in front of you, right? You can look at their history. They like roses, not chocolate. You're going to have an appropriate conversation. You're in the tasting room, and unless you were appointment only and had time to research who's coming into you, you probably don't have that luxury to go to the database and pull up the info, especially if you're 3 deep at a bar, on a busy Saturday. So how could you get information as to whether they like chocolate or bling or roses? Ask them. Engage with them. Ask open-ended questions, especially if you hear that they've been there before and they've come back again and they like your wines. Great. Which ones are your favorites? Because you need to know. You don't want to make the chocolate versus bling mistake, right? You need to know so you can shift gears, but asking them. And again, if I had that recording of the last 4,000 mystery shops, 95% of the words spoken would be the servers talking about the what's about the wines, and not a lot of information coming back of who's in front of them. What are their wants and needs? What are their interests? How can I tailor this guest experience to them? And that's really the key here. And so keep going up the continuum. We have our loyal fans, our brand ambassadors, those people who we would love to clone. You know, who are you? Who are your people? I want 1,000 more of you. So what happens up here? What do we think? What's their psychological need? They're referring us to friends. They're great brand ambassadors. What do we need to do to keep them in the relationship, to keep them happy? What's their psychological need? Kat?
They need to feel like they're special.
They feel like they're special. They need the appropriate respect and rewards that they deserve. Okay, so prospect. I knew that was going to happen. Well, I don't need my notes anyway, so they're just there as a security blanket. Prospect risk reduction, first-time buyer recognition, repeat buyer, tailored offers, show that you understand the loyal fans, its respect and rewards. So I've got a couple comments with this. Some of us think that our wine club is automatically at the upper tier. But I'm here to tell you that our new wine club members have to go through the same emotional journey going up the buyer's continuum. And if you just assume they're up there, you're going to miss building the relationship with them. Okay, and they're not going to be as sticky and have the longevity that you hope they are. So that's first. Second is, there are people at your winery who either were former club members or just never joined the club because they're not joiners. But they're great brand fans, right? They really love your wines. What are you doing for them to give them the respect and the rewards that they deserve? Just because they're not in the club, are we inadvertently, by omission, punishing them? Yes, Ashley.
I was just going to say, just remembering them, remembering their name, remembering their interaction, and asking, how's your wife? Are you going to get another bottle of rosé for her? I know she really liked that.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Showing that, so certainly on the recognition basis, even taking it a step further, saying what proactively could you be doing with them? There are people who create loyalty programs that don't function like a club, but they have this level, and you don't want to feel like they're part of something bigger. It wants to feel very customized, that you're just saying, hey, we know you're a good customer because you bought X this last year, and we want to invite you to a special event, or we want to give you a special, savings. I hate the word club discount, you'll find. I love the word club member savings because I think it's the same attitude, but a better positioning. So maybe there's some savings they get, some benefit they get because they're really doing a lot of heavy lifting with them, and we appreciate it. One other mention as we're talking about this, you can also have people in here who, as I mentioned, who are former members of your club. I hate the word ex-club members because from a personal experience, we launched some of the first wine clubs in the industry back in the early 90s, and we had tens of thousands of members. And whenever we had someone quit the club, I was kind of like just personally offended, right? It made me so angry. It's like a bunch of ex-boyfriends I never want to speak to again, right? Just, And so, but despite my bad behavior of not treating them with any respect or rewards, I'm looking at the data, going through my segmentation and realizing despite our mistreatment, they keep buying. What if I actually wasn't so rude to them? What if I found a way to communicate them? Just because they've quit the club does not mean they've quit your brand. So all we're doing is graduating to a new chapter in the relationship. What's the new way we should be communicating with them and serving them and figuring it out? And so it's kind of reframing what we used to call ex-club members. Let's call them club alumni. They've graduated from the club. And if they still like us and still support us and say good things, maybe they'll give back to us like alumni do. But you got to work that alumni. Alumni networks don't keep going without someone kind of fanning the flames, right? And so this is, I think, this is a powerful tool in a number of ways, and I hope you actually go back and share the concept with your winery, with your team members. Because first of all, if you have frontline team members at the winery who are not comfortable or don't know what the heck you're doing with the data you want them, the contact data you want them to capture, just explain. There's no second dates without it. And we're trying to build long-term relationships. The tasting room is the large front door where everybody's coming in. And if we are only getting 7% of members, sign up for the wine club, my experience shows that on average, you probably have another 5%, 5 to 10% of people you're signing up for your contact data for your mailing list. So that means 85%-ish had a rocking good time, and we have no way to have second dates. So we're missing that. So even that alone is great. The other key lesson in here is don't treat everybody equal on all of your communications, whether they're in person or via email. And what kind of programming do you have to formalize the love, if you will, as you go up the continuum? So this is the second secret of professional sales. It's the concept of there is a buyer's continuum. Everybody has different needs, and do what you can to embrace it. We have more to do than just sell wine club memberships. It reminded me that I forgot to say something. We have this unique thing, before we leave the concept of buyer's continuum, we have this unique thing in the wine industry where we have someone we meet for the very first time, they walk into the winery, and we sell them the wine club, it's like we get married. They just pop all the way up the continuum. It's actually an unnatural act, and that's what I said before. They don't actually pop up the continuum. They've signed up. If there's a high likelihood you can get them up there, but you got to kind of work the system, right? That's one point. And then the second one is, we also have this bias in the wine industry that's kind of club membership or bust. And I want to break that in terms of those 7% or whatever that you're signing up, somewhere between 2 to 15, but let's say it was 7. It's just we're not honoring the other 93% of the people that came. And I presume they had a rocking good time too. So yes, I made the world harder, but that's okay. We're going to spend the rest of the day getting more tools of how to deal with that. Okay. Talk a little bit about why people buy wine. We've been exploring one of these, which is what's their relationship to our winery and to our wines. There's two other key drivers of why consumers buy wine in general. First of all, it's who they are as people and why they buy any luxury discretionary item. And secondly, it's what their relationship is to wine in general, not our wines, but wine in general. We're going to explore both of these. First of all, on the why people buy. Why do you buy something that's non-essential, that's some discretionary purchase? Not food, gas, medical, whatever, but something that you want but don't necessarily need. Why do you buy those items? Anyone?
Fun.
It's fun. What else? Great. What? Makes you feel good. Great. What else?
Center, your own personally fueled reward center.
You deserve it. I deserve this. Great. Yeah. There's lots of reasons why. And actually the common denominator with what we just heard is people tend to buy with emotions in these cases. That's the common core denominator. They may justify their decision with logic, but they're buying with emotions. And more than anything else, in our world, people are going to buy when they feel cared for and when they feel understood. And we played with that a little bit on the buyer's continuum. There's 3 actually main reasons people buy our wines. And it's product, brand, and it's product, brand, and emotion. So from the product side, we've got the taste and the quality of the wines, the price point, ratings or wine scores. We talked about that a little bit. The brand we explored earlier, it's that unspoken gut check, but it can really be quite important, especially for a long-term relationship with the customer, which is what we're looking for, that promise or reputation of the winery, that identity that they emotionally connect with. stories around that core why of the wine history or traditions or values. But it all triggers this emotional connection. The third part, which seems obvious, but we haven't talked about it yet, is that the most important thing, the reason they buy, is the emotional connection or the experiences, because these purchases do not occur without it. You can have a great brand story and a really compelling why and a beautiful venue and fabulous wines, and if their guest experience sucks, they're not going to buy. Okay? And it's a shame when that happens. But what we're doing is we're not just selling wine, we're selling memories. To remember the visit every time they open that bottle. They want to, if they're feeling good, it reminds them of enjoyment of life in general. There's other reasons they buy emotionally. It could be the convenience. It could be that reward you just talked about, exclusivity, bragging rights, impressing their friends, or they buy because they like you. It's all of these things rolled up into one. And so we've passed out of the industrial economy, even the technology economy, and now we're in the experience economy. And the idea is that work is theater, and every business is a stage. And this it's maybe a stretch for some businesses, but it's custom made for what we do in the wine industry because customers want memorable experiences. And so one of the theories, I use Disney as a number of examples. There's a reason why Disney stores didn't work when you took them out of the theme parks, like you just popped them in a mall, right? Because they didn't have the rest of that experience and the characters running around and those actions. There was no hands-on games, no place to play for the kids. Easiest way to kill a concept is to not understand what made it work in the first place. So speaking of Disney, we have another concept here that's foundational to what we teach at WISE, and this is the concept of front stage, backstage. For those of you who've heard me speak at the symposium, you might remember it. But it's important as we talk about the guest experience at the winery. When guests come to our winery, it's like a theatrical performance. It's the curtain has gone up and we are on stage. Now we know there is a ton of work that needs to be done in the backstage to make the front stage or make the onstage experience effective, to make it good. The challenge is we don't want to let our backstage show. Okay, you want to make sure the glasses are buffed and the wine is poured at the right temperature and the tasting bar is neat and the bathrooms are clean and we don't want to see we used to, actually, I'll tell you a story right now of our backstage showing when we were at Willamette 2 days ago doing this session. The workbooks didn't show up. And so we were running around like chickens with our head cut off, and everybody saw it. And then when we got to this part, I'm saying, our backstage was showing this morning. So the point is, we don't want to break that magic of the theatrical performance. And this is different. We're all at working wineries. And so I'm not talking about you're going through production. There's going to be hoses. There's going to be water. That's fine. That's actually a little bit of performance art, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the things that the guests see or hear or smell that just shouldn't be there, that are distracting from the theatrical performance versus adding to it. And when we do the debrief of Mystery Shops this afternoon, that's one of the things we're going to be chatting about. Did we see anything in the backstage showing that shouldn't have been there? So, and that could break some of that magic, break that emotional connection and the guest experience. So the last piece of this pie, in terms of why people buy, is what their relationship to wine is in general. Nothing to do with our wine or our winery, but wine in general. And to demonstrate this, we basically have identified 5 different categories of customers. Now I want to see if any of these categories, I'm about to do this again, okay. I want to see if any of these types of customers make their way to Southern Oregon. Sometimes in our tasting rooms, we see ratings junkies. Okay, people are living and dying by the ratings. And sometimes we have advice seekers, people who love to have you help them decide what they should buy, what they should taste, they should buy. Sometimes we have value buyers, people who are either on a budget or looking for a deal. Sometimes we have know-it-alls, people looking for an audience. Or all those guys just stuck in Napa. Hopefully you don't have any of them up here, right? No know-it-alls make their way up to. And sometimes we have newbies, people as this is their very first experience. So guess what? Each of these characters in our experience have different psychological needs, kind of like we played with it on the buyer's continuum, saying what's going on? And if we can figure out what's going on with them, that'll inform us a little bit of how we can best serve them and help them. So we're going to play with that a bit and see what comes out. So we are on section 3B and C in your workbook. Let's start with ratings junkies. Okay. For each of these, I want to hear, how do you know when you have one in front of you? What their need is, what their psychological need is that we need to fulfill, and then knowing that, how we can best sell to them. Okay. Okay, so ratings junkies. What do they need? No, I'm sorry, before, I will get back to you in a sec. How do you know when you have one in front of you? What awards have you won? What awards have you won, right? It's like a neon sign, okay? What awards have you won? What is this rated? Or sometimes they might tell you what it's rated because they've already done the research right before they came. They're looking it up. Okay, so pretty quickly in the guest experience, if this is something that someone cares about, one of your guests cares about, they're probably going to tell you. Okay, so before we get to how do we best sell to these men and women, let's stop and ask ourselves, well, what is their psychological need? What do we need to fulfill in terms of before they're going to buy from us? Any ideas? Reassurance, yeah, so this is interesting because can they come off cocky sometimes? So isn't that kind of ironic? They're cocky, but they need reassurance. And so this is the question, are they a leader or are they a follower? They're a follower, but will they follow just anybody? No. So they're kind of like a follower with ego. They'll follow someone who they're supposed to respect. They'll follow the magic dust. It's not just follow anybody. Are they going to follow you? No. And sometimes that's a mistake. Sometimes people make it so, well, I can just get them to, listen to me or have confidence in their own palate and all that stuff. No, that you're going to ding, 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 danger territory with them. So the thing is, they need to, they're a follower. And so they need reassurance and guidance from someone they respect. Guidance from experts. And there's certainly some ego at play here, but not ego in terms of leadership, ego in terms of it's got to be, a little bit of bragging rights. There's that little thing too. I only buy 95 plus rating, blah, blah, blah. We've all met these guys, right? Okay, so I want to go through how we sell to these guys if we have ratings, and how to sell to these guys beyond our ratings, whether we have them or not. Okay, first of all, if we've got the ratings, what do we do? Show them. Do not hide it, please. This is like the straightest line, 2 dots. Just give them the ratings. Do you have your cheat sheets? Do you have, all your best and highest rated wines on one form, or also marked on your tasting sheets? Make this easy for them, please. It's really easy. They're basically saying, Coach, throw me the ball. I'm going to buy. Throw them the ball. Also, if you've got highly, and this is not just, again, Parker and Specter, it could be awards, it could be anything that falls into, a blessed category, but it's some third party we're supposed to respect, an expert has rated this. Do you have that 6-pack ready to go, fully priced? You do not need to have any types of savings on these wines. You've got a ratings junkie there, hey, we have a sample pack right here ready for you. Make it easy for them. So how to sell is use your ratings. Okay, on lists, pre-packs, make it easy, easy, easy. Okay, how can you sell to these guys beyond ratings? Let's say you don't put your wines out for ratings. What are things, knowing that they want guidance from experts, and there's a little bit of ego and bragging rights involved, how can you sell to them? Yes?
Sales trends.
Sales trends.
What moves out the door if you you sell only one bottle to a customer, if they come in and they only buy one bottle, what's the one that usually goes home with the most people?
Okay, are they going to respect the people?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not sexy enough. I see where you're going with it, and actually that'll be a perfect fit for the advice seeker. That there could be, certainly could be some, if there's a media play around, you know, the top winery, the best this, you know, there, we could play off of media. But there's some other very specific examples. Yes?
I have the luxury of being able to bring in the winemaker a lot.
Uh-huh.
Talk shop with those people.
Yeah. So the winemakers, we know, Vince puts his pants on one leg at a time, but winemakers are our rock stars, right? And so absolutely they have the credibility. These guys, this category will respect them. So winemakers' favorites, this type of thing, play that up. It feeds, they're an expert, and it feeds that ego magic dust thing. Does that make sense? Great. Yep. Use winemakers and owners. Again, it just depends. We certainly have the winemakers and then owners, depending on who they are and how active they really are. But yeah, so use your, but the pinnacle is going to be the person making the wine. It has kind of our internal rock star status. And that's what these guys are looking for, right?
What about like your vineyard manager, somebody that's out there, they know what goes into the grapes, you know, where you're at, the grapes, the numbers, everything.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there's not respect for those people. There's probably a pecking order, you know. Make it sound, yeah, beef it up, you know, yeah. And that's coming off as derogatory to vineyard managers. I don't mean it to be. I'm just saying these guys are like, this is not about who we respect, it's them, and they have this ego magic dust thing going on there. So winemakers, owners, you talked about, you know, some really, you know, PR media plays if it's really sexy and really best of and that kind of stuff. That can work. What else can work to these guys? Yes?
I try to read magazines and stuff like Wine Enthusiast so that I can answer their questions. Like a lot of people will ask us, you know, what wines are good for what is drinking really well right now or
Yeah.
something. And I'll tell them the truth, you know, what I think.
Yeah.
And then I can use things like, well, you know, I read in Wine Enthusiast this month that they said Oregon Pinot Noirs are drinking their best from 2011
Yeah.
right now.
So there's another group category that we're going to talk about in a second that's going to be a perfect fit for here. With these guys, we want to keep their, you know, this kind of ego follower thing going. Any other ideas?
Are we just looking for another individual that you're gonna bring up, or?
Yeah, anything. I mean, we're brainstorming. Yeah, brainstorming. What else would you use? Any other tools in your toolkit? I got a couple more.
You do like best kept secret, people don't know how good this
Yeah.
is yet.
Again, with these guys, it's got to be someone credible. I'm being picky here. I mean, yes, that's it. If you have any celebrity, you know, that is in your customer base, that is, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio's favorite one, whatever. Any other thing you can brag about, it could be celebrity. It could be if your wine was ever poured at the White House, please print the menu and put it on the wall. Absolutely, it fits into this category, right? It's to think of the thousands of wines that were considered. That's the common denominator here, the thousands of wines that were considered to make these choices of ratings, of placements. High-end restaurant placements also works. Do you know, off the top of your head, your top restaurants that you have your wines in and comes off of it? Ding, ding, ding. This is served. Bing, bing, bing. And especially, do you have the list for those of you who do distribute, you know, beyond direct to consumer? Do you have your list in markets? You know, so just that cheat sheet list. They're from Chicago, great. And rank them by the most respected restaurant, 1 and 2. We're poured at this and this. It appeals to these guys. There's nothing to do with the ratings and awards, but it feeds that need. Does this make sense? Okay, so high-end restaurant places, White House, you're served with the Academy Awards, anything sexy, NASCAR, I don't know, whatever, something, depending on your customer, right? Okay, so there were some other good ideas that came up. It just wasn't fitting the need of this individual. But we're going to get to the next one. Does this make sense? Okay, great. Let's go on to the next one. Let's do advice seekers. Okay, how do you know you have one in front of you? And what are they asking you?
What's your best wine?
Yeah. Yeah, what do people like? What's your best wine? What do you like? They're open to book. The one before we were saying they're not really going to respect your opinion, so it shouldn't be about you. Whereas these guys are like, yeah, please tell me. Okay, great. They're open. Yes.
I like to say what my favorite of my wines are. Each of my staff have different ones.
Yeah.
And then I open the door to something bigger.
Yeah. So we're going to get to the how in a second. Let's stop for a moment and talk about the need. What is their need for these advice seekers? What do they want?
Advice.
Advice. They want advice. They want education. They want it. Now, are they necessarily, or do they know a lot about wine, or are they inexperienced?
They might know.
They might. There's a whole continuum, and that's important. Just because they're asking your advice doesn't mean they don't know a heck of a lot about wine. It's the way they learn. They want advice. They want to learn. They want to be educated. They want to learn, they want to try new things. Great. So now, Kat, back to you. So how do you, some of them, they're clearly an advice seeker. Do you just tell them what your favorite is?
No, I'll pour it when I've shown the label and pour it. And then once I form that communication, if they do agree, then I open the door to other wines.
Yeah. There's, otherwise, you have an advice seeker in front of you. They're saying, what is your favorite wine? What do you do?
Tell them.
Do you pour it? Do you go straight and pour it for them?
No.
Tell them what it is and why I love this wine.
Yeah.
I find passionate about it.
So we're missing a step here.
I ask them what they like.
Yes. Because what happens is, yes, they're giving us a green light for us to share our advice. And that's great. Way more fun than maybe the ratings junkies, right? And we are going to do that. But we first need to frame it. We need to ask a couple clarifying questions, just so we know, are we going over the left hill or the right hill here? We need to understand. Because if we're just, I happen to like something very specific, and that's not their taste, I haven't done them a service. So stop, ask them a clarifying question or two to get a sense. If they're wine knowledgeable, they'll be able to tell you, I really like earthy Pinot Noirs versus, robust and fruity. They'll be able to tell you the difference. If they're kind of more new to it and you pick that up, you can also ask them about food preferences. Things like to give yourself just a general direction. Reds and whites. We want to ask a couple clarifying things. So then, of course, once we have our guardrails, perfect, please share what your favorites are. And I love the fact that different team members have different favorites. And we used to do that on the phone all the time, because I was a big fan of, back in the early days of Ambrosia, with the thousands of people calling, I really like aged Cabernet Sauvignon because it's, the tannins have smoothed out, but the fruit's still there. But Angie sitting next to me here likes those big monster tannic, rip the enamel off your teeth caps. So that's fine. You can play to, I have a preference, Johnny has a preference, super. But please get your guardrails. Know what lane you're driving down before you do. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So the how is first ask clarifying questions. Then give advice. Pretty straightforward. Okay. What am I going to do next? Let's do value buyers. Okay. There are two types of value buyers. There are buyers that are on a budget, okay? And they are looking at your lowest price wines. If you have multiple tasting options, they might be choosing the lowest price tasting. It could be the end of their vacation and they've already spent a ton of money at other wineries, and so there are a lot of reasons. So there's some people who We're just on a budget. I want to talk about the other kind of value buyer. And these value buyers have all the money in the world. Okay, I call these like value buyers in terms of like a Warren Buffett value buyer, right? They know a deal, or they want a deal, but they've got money. How do you know you have one of these people? First of all, have you ever met them? Yes. Yeah, everyone has. How do you know you have one in front of you? What are they doing and saying?
Ask about case discount.
Ask about case discounts. Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else? Specials, case discounts, volume shipping options, whatever. There's definitely. So what are they doing? What's their need? First of all, what are they doing?
Shopping?
Are they shopping? What? Do they have to? Do they actually care if they? I mean, do they need to save money on this wine? No. So what are they doing?
How far they can get.
They're seeing how far they can get you. Are they playing a game?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a game.
Yeah.
They're playing a game, and that's what's in. They don't need to save the money, and also they don't need to save the only things that you have discounts on, right? There's also relative value. So what is their need? What? Yeah, they play the game and win. And when they win, are they going to be quiet about it? No, and brag.
They gotta feel like it's their decision.
Exactly. They gotta feel like, I got a buddy, John, at Duck Pond. He takes care of me. He really does. I just get stuff that nobody else gets. We want to end up with them feeling that way. So, how do we sell to them? Knowing now, with each of these things, you're seeing, rather than just jump to the how to sell to them, it's like stop, consider the need. Given we know that that's the need, how do you sell to them? Yes?
Sometimes it's as easy as mentioning something is a certain price, because you know how your wines are priced, and you probably have a pretty good idea as far as what has the best value. And of course, to each person it's different. So if you have something that
So where's
a wide range of palates,
Where's the game in that?
the game lies in you picking the right wine that is going to give them that, and talking about it in a way that gives them the idea that they're really getting something special
Okay.
for a cheap price.
So if
It's on
you-
its way out, or it's pouring well now, and we need to get it out the
Yeah,
door.
yeah.
It's pouring really well right now.
Yeah. So you want it to, these are not necessarily, and I'm being a little gross here, Kmart Blue Light Special buyers, right? That they're just looking for that value. They almost want to get to, if you link it to relative value, then it's the game.
Yeah.
It's the inside scoop, inside connection. I got this, the real value of it's here, but I got it for here.
Keywords.
Yeah, so it's
Keywords.
It's using keywords that make it the game versus just, we have some extra and we gotta get it going, right? So you gotta play with it a little bit more. Kate.
Well, I can't always offer discounts because we have very low volume inventory.
Right.
I can't offer scarcity.
Right.
People like to play that game to make them feel special. It's like, well, I only have literally 2 cases of that.
Absolutely.
You got me with that 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Older vintage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I have 3 of those bottles.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
even has a little.
Yeah. And this is an excellent point. In one case, it could be about actual savings. It could be volume-based. Buy enough cases, we're going to do something from you. It could be special. We'd have this is an inside thing just for people who came here today, whatever. Or you seem to know a lot about this, and finding some way to make it special, to make it the game that not everybody getting it. But that's the point I wanted to make. It's not always about the discounts. It can be about scarcity. So one is discounts for some performance-related thing. Buy enough, and we can do a deal. Second is scarcity. Hey, you're here, inside. Not everybody gets this. You can play that. The other one is relative value. This is priced this way, and the vineyard next door sells. It's the same terroir, and it's 2 times as expensive. And this is an inside secret. This is why we never sell it outside the winery. It's like our little local secret, okay? Or staff secret, or things like that. So you can play to, discounts with performance, volume, timing, whatever. You can play with scarcity. You can play with scarcity or relative value. I tell you, and those are really driven by insider connections. So that's the game aspect of this. Does this make sense? Okay. Let me stop here for a second and talk about wine clubs. We're going to spend some time on wine clubs this afternoon. Would you sell, now that I've introduced this concept to you, does it change how you'll sell or bring up the benefits of wine clubs to different types of categories? Give me an example. How would it be different? Kate? Kat?
I have a couple that came in who is on a very tight budget and they only use their debit card
Okay.
for bills.
Yeah.
And so I broke it down to when we release our wine club and this date throughout a whole year. And it was the very first wine club they signed up for.
Very cool.
So very excited
Yeah.
to be a part of something.
And so that is the first type of value buyer we talked about. You're tailoring it to their needs and their conscious. That's great. And you're also showing that it's a deal and not that much when you actually break it down. Awesome. How else do you sell wine club members? Yeah.
Seeing the actual numbers, so when we do have a case discount, oh, it's 14 a bottle rather than this, but sometimes it doesn't always do it. So pulling up, with our wine club members, they get a certain percentage every time they come in, depending on their level, but showing, okay, with just your normal discount at, 20% or whatever it is, on this case, it's normally 3, whatever. But with this discount, it's 1 something. So here's a $200 difference. Sometimes just those numbers.
Yeah, and especially with these value buyers, they're giving you these signals that this is so part of it, and you're playing a little bit off of both savings and the inside connection. Is like, hey, we could talk about this, and you're pulling your levers, but it's like, but by the way, the best deal is to be our case member club. Okay, it's the highest level of member savings. It's where all the best wines are going, and so you're kind of playing off both that savings as well as discount. Yeah.
Point out that our 2 most recent gold medal winners are included in this club selection.
So for the ratings junkie, that's going to be really important. So you see how as you're identifying them, you'd be on the ratings junkie. It's like, by the way, we often, sometimes we don't even get to pour our best ones in the tasting room because it just all goes for the club. Or we have such limited supply of this, we don't even get to send it out for ratings because it just gets set up for the club. But you're playing to what you know. You're playing to know what their interest is. The advice seekers, it's like, please consider the club because you clearly love learning about wines and we're doing the heavy lifting for you. We're deciding what to send out. We're sending you information with it. You'll learn a lot. You'll try new things. See how you're shifting your club pitch based on who's in front of you. It's very powerful. Okay, value buyers. Know-it-alls. Are you really? They're not just in Napa. They actually sneak up here? I'm sorry about that. Shoot. I was hoping we could just skip this step. Okay. Okay, first of all, how do you know you have one in front of you?
They'll tell you.
How are they telling you?
Name droppers. They'll name all the important wine people in the Willamette Valley like
Yep.
their personal friends.
Yep. So name droppers, how else are they telling you?
They bring their own spit thing.
They bring their own spit thing, okay. Pull it out. Yeah. What else? How are they letting you know they're a know-it-all?
Yeah, you listen.
They tell you what they do, they don't listen. They tell you what they do better.
If they're from a winery or have experience, they tell you, maybe something about yours, but somewhere they had better or what was different and they liked more.
Yeah. So they are very, so they might be telling you things about your own winery and certainly comparing and contrast. They're showing that they're knowledgeable, or at least I think they are, and comparing it. Yes?
They'll tell you how big their wine cellar
They
is.
tell you how big their wine cellar is. Okay, so these know-it-alls, are they traveling with a bunch of other know-it-alls? No, they're the alpha dog, usually, right? And so before we talk about how, and first of all, are they always right? No, not always. Sometimes, but not always, right? And so often we'll see, well, we'll get to the how do we sell to them, but before we do, we're going to talk about what do they need. What's their psychological need?
They need to be fluffy.
A little fluffy. They need to be heard. They need to be validated, right? And as we say up on the slide there, they need an audience. So, knowing that, how do we sell to them effectively? First of all, if they're wrong, what do?
Just move on.
Don't correct. It's one. We'll see that with people who are newer to the wine industry, and they may be very knowledgeable. And this conversation in classes is so funny sometimes because we're like, "Oh, I had a know-it-all, and he was just wrong, and I sure corrected him and let him have it." It's like, yeah, it didn't sell him any wine. Exactly.
I had one that said, nice arms.
I was like, yes, they are. Nice arms. That's great. So they're not always right. And the thing is, to a battle with them, you're going to, win the battle and lose the war. I mean, you're not going to sell them wine. And so I have a couple points with this is they're with a group of friends. The know-it-all's taking them around. I don't actually care if misinformation is getting to their friends because the friends are traveling with this guy, whatever.
They're gonna get it again later that day.
They're going to keep getting it. You're not going to fix that for them for the day. If they're in a tour and tasting and are kind of getting misinformation out that's destroying other people's, experience of your winery, you need to find a way to gently, this is where yes and comes in, get the correct information out in a way that doesn't embarrass them. So and that's fine, and I know you guys know how to do this because you've had this situation, I'm sure. So, but that being said, what are the ways? Now we know what's making them tick. We're not pretend it's not irritating us, and sometimes we can actually, they're really knowledgeable and we can learn stuff from them, right? But how to best sell to them? What do we do?
I think if you pay attention to what they say when they do make comments about the wines that they're tasting, if you can remember things that stuck out to them, or maybe even just paying attention to their body language and their, visual signals on their face. Sometimes you can kind of get that insight as to, like, you get near the end of the taste, you're starting to ask whether they want to take anything home with them. Hey, I remember you really liked, if you can just kind of make it like you notice without actually having them say something, I think that would work.
Well, they want the audience. And so the fact that you're actually showing them respect and bringing back up things that they said, the ones that were right.
Or non-verbally.
Or just noticing and recalling. So pay attention, notice and recall, ask them questions. Ask them what do you think about these? How did you learn so much about wine? Someone said be the fluffer, right? What? What do you normally like? Ask questions. Show interest. Ask questions. Feed the beast. They'll buy from you. Okay.
So, as a know-it-all needs all this attention, so at that point in time, when you are busy and saying, you're always the only staff member, how do you cater to their needs but still help others? If a know-it-all needs the attention, it needs the audience, it needs that, constant conversation, whether, they're right or wrong or whatever, they need that. How do you attend to their needs but also a busy environment?
Okay, I'm going to answer it two ways. One is if they are with another group of people and everybody, then know-it-all is going to set the pace for the group. And so you're going to, yes, you need to, within those groups, you're going to have advice seekers, you're going to have newbies, you're going to have other things. And so that's one of the challenges of the job. But since this guy's or woman is the alpha dog, right? And is the alpha dog, it's make sure you're not ignoring them or dissing them because there's a thing there. And then if you've got a bunch of groups that you're serving, that's just the normal challenge of the job, right? It's not that they need necessarily more attention because all of these guys need attention. It's just showing up in different ways. And what I wanted to drive home a little bit firmly is actually these can be some of the easier ones. It doesn't have to suck up all the time if you are paying attention, asking some questions, and then they're off to the races.
I was actually going to say that actually they often sell the rest in the
Yeah.
group.
Yeah,
because
pairing
they're
them up with
so-
people who are advice seekers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Works really well.
So they can be, if you're honoring and respecting them and noticing them and stuff like, they can help sell if they feel validated.
You're exactly right. How do you know all of this? Well,
How'd you learn?
really big seller.
How'd you learn? Yeah. So it's not just know-it-alls that can suck your time. Any of these guys could suck your time, right? But it's just, I'm just saying, don't, because they may not irritate you, they may be fine. But if they're irritating you, please don't jump over them, because they can actually be one of the easiest groups to sell to. But we tend to, because people who are attracted in these jobs usually love wines, and it might get our hackles up. And say, you got to check that. Does that make sense? Okay. So pay attention, notice, recall, show interest, ask questions, and absolutely then please ask for the order, and go big. They're based off of what the signals they're giving you. These can be some of your absolute best customers if you're kind of honoring them. That make sense? Okay. Last one is newbies. First of all, how do you know you have a newbie in front of you? What do they say?
I'm new to wine.
I'm new to wine. I've never done this before. My first tasting. How does this work? Yeah, that's awesome. And sometimes they're wide-eyed and excited, and sometimes they're petrified and intimidated, especially if they've had a know-it-all beating them up all day. But and so, yeah, no, they can be anywhere along the spectrum of excited to kind of really intimidated. What do they need? They need us to make it approachable. Make it fun, make it approachable. Don't bring out, kill them to death with malolactic fermentation and other such intimidating words, right? We need to make it approachable, use layman's terms, use analogies, those are fun, not in a condescending way, ever, but in a way that's, makes it fun. And the good news is everybody remembers their first time. This is really cool. This is going to be a memorable experience for them. See, I'm back to the relationships again. Okay. Okay, so what do we do to sell to them? What are things that you guys use? What works best for you with newbies?
Customizing their flight.
Customizing their flight, how?
Like, we have some people who are like, I'm new to wine, so I only like whites or rosés.
Okay,
Or some people say, I just strictly like red wine. So
okay.
customizing and kind of going off the beaten path of what's in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just if they have, especially if they're newbies, but they have some level of interest, playing off that in an area that's familiar for them is always going to be more uncomfortable versus encompass other ideas. How do you play to newbies?
I give them a lot of praise and encouragement, and I'm like, okay, we're going to go through this journey together, so
Yeah,
let's see what you like, you're going to learn.
yeah,
You pay attention to your mouth and
Yeah.
what you're thinking.
yeah. So a little bit of education of how to do this, but not in an intimidating way, but in an encouraging way. I love that.
Reassure them, like it's okay if you don't know the right words to say.
Yeah.
But it's just what you like, and
Yeah.
remember what you like.
Yeah, we're just trying to find out here what you like. And we don't all like the same things. I mean, we go out to dinner with friends, and we all order salads, and we have different salad dressings. We have no social pressure to like the same salad dressing. Why do we have the social pressure to like the same wine? It's okay.
I find a lot they ask, if they do go through a tasting, it's like, oh, well, I really liked this one, but, this one, and it may be like a bigger red or a more dry white. Then I get the question frequently, well, then what is my palate? I'm like, well, I can't tell you that, it'll change,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
and then, but that's, I can kind of see, this one, was a little more drier, this one was a little sweeter, or this was more tannins or less tannins, so I can give them that advice, but I do find that they tend to ask a lot like, well, what do I like?
Yeah. So part of it, one of the common theme of what we're talking about is help them identify what it is they like. And then if you can share with them, if you like this, you might also like this and this. So it just gives them you start from what they know, You start from what's familiar, and if they literally know nothing about wine and the whole thing is just have them quaking in their boots, start with food. Because everybody has food preferences, right? So if we really can't connect with them because you can just tell the whole wine is too intimidating, finding out what they like to eat and then get in the general direction of red or white, okay? And then you can start building from there based on something that they know. But the more we can make it fun and okay, and we're just here to figure out what you like and don't like, and you're not gonna like everything, that's completely cool, you know? Let's just find out what you do and build from there.
That's like where the analogy comes in. Analogies, you see those.
Analogies are I love analogies. We're actually going to do an exercise on analogies in a little bit. And the reason I love them is because it's entertaining for everyone on the buyer's continuum and all the different profiles, because you can learn, it's like edutainment, you know, you learn something new. But it's really, really good for people who are on the newbie end of the spectrum. Yeah. Okay, so make it approachable and fun. They need their handheld, right? And understand, see what they like. And so it's, show them how. Make it fun and approachable. Connect the dots for them. So how would you sell a wine club to a newbie?
Great way to learn about wine.
Great way to learn about wine. We do all the heavy lifting. We pick it for you, and we help share. And it's a great way. It's easy and it's convenient. It's just going to show up on your door. Yeah, right. Very cool. Everything has a shiny side and dark side. We start teaching you the concept of what we call positive profiling. It's figuring out what makes this person in front of me tick. What are their needs? How can I best serve their needs? Everyone's different. It's a big juggling. I'm going to be juggling a lot. There's lots of different ones. But the more I can do this, the better experience it's going to be. The only way we can get to this information, both on the buyer's continuum as well as the wine buyer profiles, so we can positively profile and make adjustments, is by asking open-ended questions. That's the only way to do it. Because if you don't ask the open-ended questions and you're judging someone or putting them in a box, you're prejudging them. That's prejudice, okay? And that's negative profiling. And I want to be really, because as you start kind of building these muscles, don't skip the steps of open-ended questions. How many times, you probably all had this experience, have you been really surprised someone that came in and they were perhaps young in age or not dressed very well or not driving the right car or whatever, and they bought a ton of wine and whipped out that American Express Black Card. It happens. Who are we to judge who's going to buy or not? And so watch out for it. Watch out for, don't make judgments on any of these. The common prejudices are up here: ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, dress, language, older people, people with kids. You're going to get specifically on the older ones, and one with kids. You have people might come in with their parents or grandparents you don't want to taste. Okay, do you have a comfortable place for them to sit? Do you have adult sodas for that? What have you done to plan ahead for that? People that come in with kids. Some of you are kid friendly. Hopefully you have that on a website. Even if you're not, you're going to get them. What are your plans for that? Okay, plan ahead, but don't judge, because I tell you, we see it all the time. Someone comes in with families, and if you're the first winery that was really insanely nice to them and made them feel comfortable, they can buy a ton of wine because they're so appreciative, right? And so we want to make sure that as we're getting good at positive profiling, we're doing it for the right reasons, because we've asked open-ended questions, we've gotten to know who's in front of us, and with that information, we're shifting gears accordingly. So this is the third secret. It's this concept of practice positive profiling. And what we at WISE call this is embracing the platinum rule. Most of us grew up with the golden rule. Treat others as you would want to be treated, right? That's just nice. That's polite. That's manners. That's not good enough in our industry, right? And we need to treat others as they would want to be treated. And we have different wine buying profiles than they do. We have different things that we would want. There's a whole bunch of stuff going up on that board, and we acted very differently based on who was in front of us. And if you confuse it, even with the best of intentions, treating others as you would want to be treated, you're only going to appeal to a small percentage of your audience, the people like you. What about all the rest? And so this is called the platinum rule. Treat others as they would want to be treated. And our number one job is to figure out how they want to be treated. Is to get out of that box that we see. 95% of the 4,000 mystery shops, our team members are stuck in monologue, pummeling our guests with 1,000 whats about the wines, and not asking questions, not figuring out who's in front of us, not shifting gears to then deliver to them a wow experience. Think about it if you're at a restaurant. Let's say it's a nice restaurant, and you either have some specific needs, like in terms of dietary needs, or what you're really looking for someone else in your group does, and you have very specific things, and the server actually gets that information from you and tailors something specifically that's going to be great to you. That took a good experience to a great, or a great experience to wow. You can't get to wow if we're not building this rapport. Right, if we're not figuring out who's in front of us. So that is embracing the platinum rule. The fourth secret of successful, natural, helpful sales is all about building rapport. And I'm just telling you that up front because there's so many different aspects to this. But it's pretty straightforward in the sense that we've got friendly greeting, we've got the right kind of icebreakers, we've got the use of tools like analogies and great storytelling, and core to it is asking open-ended questions. As we were just sharing, we want to do this positive profiling, but we want to do it the right way. We've got to figure out who's in front of us. We're going to spend a little time unpacking that a bit. But let's start at the top. So for those of you who did the mystery shops, kind of we shared what our WISE standards are. Friendly greeting, prompt friendly greeting with eye contact and a smile. Within 15 seconds is what we're looking for. And for those of you who did shops, if you weren't getting it in 15 seconds, we asked you to look at your phone or look at your watches. What did 30 seconds feel like? What did a minute feel like? What did 2 minutes feel like? It seems picky, but actually you'll see that it's one of those things that if we blow the greeting, even if every other aspect of the shop was great, the chance of getting a high customer satisfaction score is very, very small. It's an unfair overreaction that if you weren't noticed for the first 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, it just doesn't matter what else you do. Yeah?
Yeah, I didn't think of it at the time, but that's also kind of a possible identifier for newbies, because they'll walk in and they'll kind of have that deer in the headlights look, like they don't know what to do once they get through the door.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one of these things that, and I understand, something else I have not said, but I should, is some of the things that we're talking about, especially with the whole buyer's continuum and wine buyer profiles and really getting to know who's in front of you. I completely get if you're at a busy Saturday and you're 3 deep at the bar, what I'm talking about is not going to happen. Like, I understand that. This is not something that you're going to be able to do all the time. But the more you practice in your down times and in normal response times, building this rapport, the more second nature it's going to become. And you'll actually be surprised how much of it you can slip in even when you're busy. But the thing with the greeting, sometimes things are just crazy. But don't underestimate just that, got you, finger and a smile, I got you in just a second, can buy you a lot of runway. But it's just that sense of being noticed, newbie or not.
I was at Domaine Serene, and they had a concierge, and the experience was so great because we came through the door and they were like, so this is what you do here, there, and I was just like, that was so cool.
Yeah. Having a greeter, so it's actually this important, and I don't know about the traffic at your individual wineries, but if this is a problem for you, you have to find a way to fix it. Because it's just this, again, negative overreaction if you don't. Have a greeter, have more staff. It's whatever, it's something that you can't just let it that'd be a nice to have. It's actually really important. And even if you have, I don't know if anybody wears name tags, some owners do, some don't, but introduce yourself. Put your hand out. And hi, Leslie, Chris, I'm nice to meet you. And I'm going to use Chris's name 3 or 4 more times during our thing. It's the small things, and it makes all the difference in the world. So, friendly greeting, introduce yourself, please. Second point is icebreaker, and it's not just an icebreaker. What's the most common first question someone gets when they visit a winery? Have you been here before? And we do need to know that. Also, is it often? It's like, where are you from? You know, and been here before. Where are you from? What I want to do, I do want you to find out that information. Have they been there before, and where are they from? You do need to work it into the conversation. But up front, or as quickly as possible, I want you guys to find out, how did they decide to come to this winery today? It's a fabulous open-end question, and you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what you're going to get. Right, but you're going to get more information than just the have you been here before. That's yes or no. That's closed. Now you're still, okay, what's my next thing to get this party started? Whereas how'd you decide to come today? It could be your neighbor winery down the street sent me. Great, were you just there? How was your experience? You're off to the races and building rapport. The restaurant I was at last night poured your wine and told me where you were. The hotel gave me a referral, or I'm a wine club member and I've already been here 4 times this summer. Whatever, I got engaged on the lawn. You're going to find out information. And so let's get that up front, because you need to know where they're at on your buyer's continuum as quickly as possible. And the sooner you can get that out, the more you can play with that and build relevant rapport. It's not just open-ended questions, any open-ended questions, how about them ducks or something. No, it's stuff that's what brought them here, what else are they doing, where are they staying, what are the wineries that they've been to. It's stuff that's going to help give you a framework for which to build relevant rapport that's going to really help you do positive profiling. And the platinum rule, shift gears to something they're going to be interested in. The quickest you can get that information there, the better. And so I'd like to reframe your current icebreaker questions into, please work that. It doesn't have to be the very first thing you say, but in this first paragraph for sure. Let's get it out and figure out what's going on. Okay. On the next 3, we're going to spend a little bit more time with using open-ended questions, using analogies, and somewhat of the power of storytelling. So building great rapport. Sample open-ended questions that usually have follow-ups. Where are you visiting from? Hawaii. Okay, great. Which island? What kind of wines do you like? Reds. Okay, what are your favorites? How long have you been in wine country? A few days. Where did you dine last night? Oh, I was at Amuse. Okay, great. What'd you have? What'd you have? That goes great with. Again, open-ended questions are not just check a box, my manager says I need to do this. It is actually building and starting the conversation, which is why you want it around stuff that you can actually go somewhere with. Close-ended questions. Are you a wine drinker? Please don't ask that. Yes, we need to find out kind of what their experience is, but you're going to put someone back on their heels. Do you like this wine? And please don't ask that. What would be an open-ended, but the ironic thing about both of these questions, these closed questions, we actually want to know the answer to them. It's going to help us serve them better. Give me an open-ended way, an open-ended question alternative to do you like this wine? What did you like about these wines? Which of these wines were your favorites? Just a way that they are answering, basically not with a yes or no or one-word answer. So open-ended questions typically use who, what, where, when, why, how. What kind of food do you like? With sparkling wine. Open-ended questions ask the respondents to give their opinions, and it gets the party started. The closed questions have a yes, no, or a single word, and they don't lead to dialogue or rapport. Now, there are some closed questions that we do actually want to know. We're going to want to figure out if they've been here before, but we're going to play with some open ways to do that. But at the end of the experience, it's like, will that be MasterCard or Visa? Can I wrap something up for you? Can I get you an application for the wine club? I mean, there's some closed questions that are fine as we're getting to the end of the cycle. What I'd like you guys to do is on page 4B, is I'd like you to spend just 5 minutes. Let me see, make sure I'm on the right page. I'd like you to pair up with the person next to you and go down and figure out what are some good open-ended questions, ways to get the information that you need to know to be able to do positive profiling. So just play on the page 4B for a second, and most specifically, if there's something that you want to know the answer, but you can only think of a closed question way to ask it, highlight that, and we're going to talk about it as a group. Okay, so if you'll just pair up with who's next to you. And if you can want to do groups of 3, that's fine. Vince, you can even go across the aisle there if you want. It can be harder to do than you think because we know what we want to ask, and human nature is you just go to a closed question, right? Because you just kind of let's get to it. So notice this with yourself. Okay, catch yourself either asking open-ended questions and see how they're working, or then notice if you're being closed. Doesn't mean you have to correct it right there on the spot, but be aware and think about after each kind of guest experience, did I ask closed questions and was there an open alternative? And if you're struggling, and please go back and do this exercise with your team members back in the tasting room. We're big at WISE, like there's no such thing as downtime in the tasting room. If nobody's in there, we're doing role playing, we're feeding our open-ended questions, we're expanding on analogies, things like that. And so part of it's just being aware about it and then also noticing when it's working. Wow, I reframed it, I asked it in an open way, and I got a nugget of information I never would have gotten, because they really are buried in there. Something else I didn't mention earlier, back to the positive profiling, now that I'm thinking about building awareness, is this will work for some of you. That if you're trying to build a new habit or trying to build new muscles, and some of the things we were talking about, getting to know who's in front of you so that way you can shift gears accordingly, is new to you, you may want to, the same way you're trying to build a habit if you're trying to exercise more regularly or eat more healthy, is literally keep a log just for a little while till it becomes a habit. And so, obviously not there right in front of the guest, but at the end of the day, just kind of jot down, how many people did you see today? Where were they at on your buyer's continuum? And depending on where they're at, how did you adjust accordingly? How many people did you see today? What kind of wine buyers were they? And once you found out, how did you adjust accordingly? The key here is at the start, is you won't remember anything. You're like, oh, I know I saw 30 people, but I don't know. But then the next day when you ask that question to yourself, you're a little bit more aware because you're starting to ask the questions. And when you finally get to the point where you're like, you're nailing it, you know where they're at in your buyer's continuum, you kind of know what made them tick and how they bought wine. And you also are jotting down how you adjusted accordingly. You don't need the log anymore because it's now a habit. I use the same thing on kind of the closed and open-ended questions. Just a little bit of a place to kind of keep it like, where am I stumbling? Where am I tying up? Going back and brainstorming with your friends in the tasting room and say, hey, watch me, or what do you use for this? And just make it, a lot of what we talk about with WISE training is standards-based training, but it's about building awareness. Because once we build this awareness, we know subconsciously what to do. It's just that we get stuck in patterns. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So practice open-ended questions. They really can be, very powerful. And because with more open-ended questions, customers feel cared about. And when they feel cared about, that builds trust, and trust leads to natural, helpful sales. The time when it feels weird asking for the order is not necessarily, in my argument, we get invited in all the time with wineries will say, come in and teach my team to ask for the order. It's like, actually, we can get them asking for the order more comfortably, but it's less about asking for the order and it's all this upstream stuff. It's building rapport, it's asking open-ended questions, it's kind of starting a relationship. So by the time it comes to say, hey, what can I pack up for you, today, it's natural. Like to not ask it would be weird. But when it feels uncomfortable, when it feels like an unnatural act, is because you've probably been stuck in monologue for about 30 minutes and 1,000 what's about your wines and you don't know who's in front of you, and then asking for the order just feels weird for both you and the guest. So open-ended questions are a fabulous tool. Another hidden benefit is it makes your day go by way faster. You know, if you're saying the same thing again and again and again, it's because you're stuck in the monologue. Figure out who's in front of you, adjust, figure out what's making them tick. It's way more fun and more effective. Okay. Next one is one of my favorite exercises. And what we're going to do, it's really on mastering analogies. We pointed out before that using analogies with newbies is a phenomenal tool. Some of us are better at this than others. If you compare these two statements for the average wine drinker, okay? The oak barrel adds flavor to the wine versus the oak barrel is like a cinnamon stick, which adds flavor to your hot chocolate. It's the same principle, but it's the oak barrel. Okay, same information, a little more fun way to share it. So it's the same principle, but out of the two statements, what one's more interesting? Second one, obviously. So analogies use more easily understood situations to explain something that's especially esoteric, which is so much of our world in wine. They usually use the words like or as in them. Over oaking a wine is like using a pound of rosemary to flavor a very small chicken. Okay? So things like that. What I'd like you to do on your own on page 4C is to go through and just share some of your favorite analogies or brainstorm analogies for any, and I gave you some ideas there. If you've got ones that don't fit on this list, that's fine. But how could we use analogies to explain the body of the wine from heavy to light? How can we use analogies to do the smell of your Pinot Noir, the smell of your Chardonnay? Why use oak in winemaking? Role of grapes in winemaking. Role of the winemaker in making wine. Role of the grape grower, vineyard manager. Why are our grapes grapes in a cool climate? Why do we grow our grapes on a hillside? Benefits of organic grapes or biodynamic grapes. Wine with food versus wine alone. A young wine versus an aged wine. What is tannin? What are those roses doing at the end of the vineyards? Why is wine blended? What's the role of acid? And so forth and so forth. So spend just a couple minutes and then we're going to share. This exercise is a great opportunity for you to expand your personal patter. And so I hope when you hear analogies from other people that you might, the cool ones that you want, please jot those down and then use them. What we're going to do is I'm going to have one of you guys share what the subject matter is and what the analogy is, and then we're going to see if anybody else in the room has another analogy for that same subject matter. So whoever wants to start, we'll just go from there. Volunteer, please. John, what's the subject matter?
Roses in the vineyard.
Roses at the end of the vineyard. Okay.
Roses in the vineyard are like the canary in the coal mine. They are going to exhibit any kind of distress that might be coming before it hits the grapes.
Yeah, great. And actually, I don't know does anybody know of another analogy for the roses at the end of the vineyard? That's a great one. I think so. That's super. Someone give me another analogy, another subject. Yes.
With maceration, the longer you leave a tea bag in the water, the more color, the more tannin, the more phenolics, respectively,
Okay.
that you get.
Okay. Great. So let's actually take the concept. That's super. Let's take the concept of tannin. What other analogies do you guys have for tannin? Yes.
The best way to explain a tannin is like that chalky filling on the roof of your mouth after you eat a banana.
Yes. After you eat a banana or inadvertently chew an aspirin or, yes. Or that leaving the tea bag steeping too long. Yeah, that's great. Or chewing actually grape skins. Super. Okay. Anybody else have anything for tannin?
Unripe persimmons.
Unripe persimmons. Great. Super. Anything else?
Well, I have one for acids.
Okay, let's go to acids.
Extensive acids, you can get that wrinkly feeling in the back of your throat, like you drank too much juice. Oh, you drank too much fermented grape juice. But no, in the case of everyone knows what that's like, is having too much juice and you get that wrinkly feeling. I don't know if that's an analogy. But anyway.
No, it is, actually. Yeah, so what other analogies do you guys have for acid? Anyone? I don't have any. Okay, give me another analogy, another subject. Anyone?
A vineyard is like a work of art. It's ever changing.
A vineyard is like a work of art. It's ever changing. Okay, let's stay on the subject of vineyards. Vineyards, or let's go to grapes. Any of those? Any other analogies for that? Yes.
Sort of related, but I like to tell people that, the guys in his too early, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
Okay.
I like to tell people that a messy vineyard is more of an organic vineyard. You know, it's like life is messy. Like if you're
Okay.
letting things actually grow and be how they want to be, it's not going to look logical.
Right. So it is an analogy because you use the words, it's like life is messy. Before that, it was just a description that organic vineyards are messy, right? Awesome. So other things for grapes and vineyards. We've got to have more analogies in here. Yes.
I think you can use symphonies and orchestras for a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like for blending, or for the winemaker is like the conductor, and
Yep, for sure. So we're going to get to that in a second. On the grape side, if the grape is the most important component in fine wine, it's like cooking. If you have a great fillet of salmon, you don't have to do a lot with it, right? But if you have a bad fillet of salmon, I don't care how good of a cook you are, how good cooking techniques, you're still sunk. And that would be an analogy about grapes and the importance of it. So,
How about
any other ones?
Speaking to the struggle that the fruit goes under? We don't necessarily want to coddle it. We want it to struggle a little bit. So grapes are like humans in that way. How do we grow? How do we thrive?
When we're
challenged and
stretched and challenged and
pushed to those limits.
yeah,
You have to do something to overcome it.
that extra CrossFit workout.
Yeah. The extra couple reps in the set.
Yeah, exactly. Or, like I said earlier on, that when the vines are stressed out, like having that visceral thing of just noticing what it's like to be up there on the hill.
Oh, right. Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. So let's go to winemaker, okay, as the conductor is a great analogy. What other analogies do you have for winemakers? Yes, in the back.
Artistic director.
Artistic.
People who come through to do OSF, I like to make a lot of theater analogies.
Yeah, really good. Like the artistic director. Winemaker's like a great chef, needs quality ingredients and to know how to cook. Okay?
And the correct proportions.
And the correct proportions. Yeah,
Together.
yeah. So other analogies along winemakers.
Winemakers to the vineyard, what Michelangelo was to the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah, so all of these work. So this is something that you can keep playing with, but it's also a great exercise to go back and do with your teams, because if we think about, we're so used to the internal wine speak, and there's a lot of intimidating words in there that even for people who like wine, they're like just flashing the fact that we know these 1,000 what's about our wines with all this dialogue of stuff that's the data-driven things that are going to lose them. This is a way not to lose them. It's a way to kind of share demystify a little bit of what goes in wine, entertain them a little bit, but also educate. And so it's a fabulous tool, and the concept of it builds rapport. Okay. What I would like to also do, and this is deeper dives, but that we go to in our longer classes, but the concept on storytelling. Have you guys ever noticed that people who seem to be natural born salespeople are great storytellers? They just weave good tales. And what I'd like to do is have you guys think, and a lot of people think, oh, I'm not a good storyteller. Or a lot of things that we see is, well, if the owner was here, you'd get the really cool stories. Or if the winemaker was here, you'd get the really cool stories. But he or she's not, so I'm going to pummel you with 1,000 what's about the wines. We need to all be really good storytellers. It's the way that's captivating. It's certainly the way we want to get our key messaging across. And you can practice this. If you think about it, you go out and see a great movie, you're going to tell your friends and family about it, right? And you're going to share a little bit of that with enthusiasm. We do this in our normal daily lives. It's part of being a human. And then it feels like we get into the job and all of a sudden, oh, we got to talk about the 1,000 what's about the wines, and we forget that fun part. So what I want you guys to do is just take literally 2 minutes on your own and jot down what are your favorite, if it's not a full-on story, those key sound bites, those key little story bits that if you shared it either with a customer or with friends or with family, that are really compelling. Like someone would be entertained by it. They'd remember it. And it could be about your winery, and work, or it could be about you living in the wine country or working in the wine country. It doesn't matter. We're just looking for a couple compelling little nuggets is what we're looking for. Spend a couple minutes. Thank you. So I'll share a story, and this is how I was 11 years old, and it's how I figured out how trellising works. We lived on a ranch in St. Helena in the Napa Valley between Joseph Phelps Vineyards and Joseph Heights Vineyards. And I was 11, I guess I was 12, and I wanted to learn how to drive. I was ready. I kept telling my parents I want to learn how to drive, and nobody was paying attention to me. So my mom was napping one day, and I just jumped in the 1968 Ford pickup truck with my girlfriend Kathy and tootled all out into Joseph Phelps Vineyards. And this is how, when you're 12 and you've never had a driving lesson and you're going up around like the dirt road on the top end of the vineyard, and they'd been irrigating, but it looked just like a normal road because there was that layer of dust. This is how I learned how trellising works, because when the truck starts sliding towards the first couple vines, and when you hit like the first two, like the next 14 just rip right out of the ground. It goes, truck sinks in the mud. Literally, Kathy and I crawl out the window of the truck, walk of shame back to the house through the mud, crying. And my mom at the time was standing out at the end of the driveway. She's like, "What did you do?" I tell her, she's like, go tell Joe Phelps. I had to walk up the hill of shame and go tell him. He had me work all summer. And of course, our parents, he's laughing about it with my mom, in the cellar, slave labor, hosing everything down, picking grapes in the fall, work my rear end off. But, let me see, 15 years later, I was his largest retailer in the United States with the Ambrosia wine catalog. So it worked out okay. So that's how I learned how trellising works. So I want to hear, we just heard, thank you very much for those of you who participated in this. I want to hear from the rest of you, what are the aspects, not the whole story, but what are the slivers of the stories that you heard that you would remember a week from now, a month from now, and why? Yes?
Connie's, or Constance. That moment where you did the reveal that it was a Merlot that you poured in. The way in which you did it is actually a question of mine. It's like, you kind of played it off like, oh, I guess I poured you a Merlot. Not actually, it was a Merlot. Yeah. Which was that? Was it that? Because that's the thing that sticks out for me. Is which one of those it was.
Well, you had to feel the person out, and I obviously knew I poured the Merlot because I showed his buddy the Merlot.
Sure.
So
but you
I
played
knew
it off.
Really. But I put it off as sort of a joke. I mean, to make it like, whoops.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping
Yeah.
for. Yeah, that's what stuck out for me.
So one of the reasons, and I agree, that aspect of Connie's story is very memorable and kind of gets our attention, is because of somewhat of the drama with it. And you know where this is going. Like, you show the buddy, you know where it's going, right? And then, okay, the reveal. And so that is an aspect of good storytelling, is building in some drama points where we know where this is going, but necessarily the protagonists don't necessarily. Great. What else was going to stand out from all the different 4 or 5 stories that we heard? What would we remember? Yes?
Ledger telling her she can't sell that ring.
Fabulous. So why? First of all, cute kids, right? Humor, actually reinforcing commitment to quality on a generational level, which is cool. All of the above. So what I want to, with this conversation, unpack the why a little bit, so the more we can put some humor in and put some pulling at our heartstrings in, for sure. What else would you remember from the stories we heard? The Greek grandma, man, in the 40s. That's awesome, Just in terms of kind of painting that picture of nobody else was doing this, and so there's, generational, and there's perseverance, and I would remember that.
I like
Yes.
that you repaid your debt to Joe Phelps years later by being his biggest retailer.
Yeah. So with that is, it happens to be true, but it's also, that's the twist. Okay, and so if you can build a twist in or kind of a little epilogue or something like that, that also is an aspect of great storytelling. So my encouragement with you guys, normally if we were in a whole certification class, we'd unpack this much further and really be practicing. But you can even go back now with your team members, and I really want you to go flesh out your stories. You know, if you've done the work, the homework from earlier on, which is what are our 3 key brand pillars? What are some of those unique differentiators, those green fish we want to get through? Great, let's agree on what those are. Now let's come up with like 10 different stories to tell different aspects of it. 20 different stories. Don't let the great storytelling be stuck with the owners or stuck with the winemaker. Everybody can tell good stories about it. You know, and this is a way to build great rapport. It's a way to get our messages across. It's entertaining, it's educational, it's memorable. These great stories will help you pass the golf course test. Okay, it's going to make you stand out from every other winery that they visited, except there's only one in Central. But that's okay. And you know, and it's really one of these skill sets that don't have to be just for the elite storytellers. We can all tell great stories. We just need to work on our repertoire a little bit more. Okay, as I promised, we're going to before we break for lunch, I'd like you to turn back to section 14 and 15, jot down some things, takeaways from this morning, and then I'm going to have you share what is one thing that you're thinking of now that you were not thinking at 8:30 this morning when you arrived. Something that you're going to go back to the winery and commit to doing, having a conversation, taking a different approach, studying something new, changing a process.